All right. Hello, everybody. We are live with episode, oh my God, what is it? 6 of Sagas and Sass. Tonight we are talking about the first approximate half of Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. It's going to be through the end of part 3. Which I don't know if I have the hardcover book, so for me it's page like 254 or something like that. But so I'm Tara. You can find me across the web at A Geek Saga, and you guys just want to rattle yourselves off real quick, and then we'll jump to actually Nami. If Nami's last on my screen, so Nami can introduce herself and then jump right into our little synopsis.
Oh, this is so exciting! I get to go first.
No, you get to go last, or you get to go first in the synopsis, last in the introduction.
Intro, then synopsis. So I'll do my little intro. Nick Popio at Nick Popio, geek extraordinaire. We're gonna talk about Six of Crows, and I love it. So that's it.
Jonathan Egan, middle-aged fanboy.
My name is Nami. I make terrible cosplay decisions. All right, so we've got another sassy intro, courtesy of Nick once more. Thanks, Nick. It was a very good intro. So, So we read Six of Crows through the end of part 3, and here's a quick recap. All right, so today we are covering the first half of Six of Crows. We open up from the perspective of someone named Juiced, but because this is the first chapter of a POV novel, we know he's not really important. He's just helping set the actual important shit up. We learn about a drug, not a jug. We learn about a drug called Jirdaparem that makes Grisha, way more powerful. It's essentially the Millennium Falcon of Six of Crows. Wait, no. The other kind of falcon where you're chasing after it the whole time. But whatever. Anyway, next we meet a Nedge who is important and super badass. She's called the Wraith because of her reputation for being able to appear from nowhere and her deadly skill with knives. She's the first of the crows that we meet, and everybody loves her. She's the best. If you disagree, you're wrong and you should feel bad. And granted, that is what was written there, but those are also my very personal feelings. She also introduces us to 2 more crows, Kaz and Jesper. Kaz is a young man who has a reputation as dirty hands because he's willing to do anything and everything to get what he wants. He also trades in secrets, so he's basically the Gretchen Wiener of the book, without the big hair. He's the leader of the crows, and we find out early on that what happens to people that try to fuck with him. He also has a limp, which means that he walks with a cane, but it's a badass cane topped with a crow's head, and he uses both that and his limp to his advantage.
So it's more than a little surprising when someone gets the drop on him. A merchant named Jan van Eck wants him to rescue the person who created Jirdaparem, Bo Yolbear, from an impenetrable prison in Fjorda. We finally learn more about why this drug is important. It enhances Grisha's magic, but it's also highly addictive. Think crack. Van Eck kidnapped Kaz to prove a point, and to force his hand, but also offers Kaz buttloads of money to do the job. Kaz recruits his fellow crows, Inej and Jesper. And Jesper, by the way, is a terrible gambler, but a really talented sharpshooter. But Kaz needs a much bigger team if he's going to pull this off. To round out his crew, he goes to Nina, a heart-render Grisha with a past, but at first she doesn't want to help because Kaz wants to save Bo Yolbear, and she thinks he needs to be killed. However, she also wants a guy named Matthias freed from a different prison called Hellgate, and Kaz knows this. Luckily, he also needs Matthias at his job. Matthias will be the 5th crow.
Why, you ask? Because Matthias was a Fjerdan soldier, specifically a witch hunter, and they tracked down Grisha, and he knows all about the Fjerdan Ice prison where Bo is being held. So the first matter of business is to break into Hellgate and get Matthias out. The plan goes pretty well. They free Matthias, who immediately tries to strangle Nina. We learn that he had hunted her down, so we aren't quite sure why she's trying to free him, but clearly there's something between them, right? Anyway, during the prison break, we also meet our 6th crow, Wylan, the demolitions expert, except he isn't really an expert per se, but he is Van Eck's son. TLDR, he's Kaz's insurance policy. The team sets out on their mission, but they're ambushed at the docks and Inej is stabbed. Kaz overreacts a little and rips one of the stabber's eyes out to get him to talk. They discover that another gang leader, Pekka Rollins, is the one behind the attack and might also have been hired by Van Eck to rescue Bo. Kaz hates Pekka, and so the game is afoot.
All right, our crows get to Fjerda without any further hitches, and then they have to trek across the icy land to get to the icy prison. Everything is very icy. Kaz is planning and plotting as they travel. Matthias is broody and grumpy, but is impressed by Kaz, but also doesn't want to admit that. He also wants to kill Bo so that the Grisha he was raised to hate will never have an enhanced powers again. And considering that on their hike they come across 3 Grisha that have been tied to stakes and burned to death, we see firsthand just how Fjerdans treat Grisha, which begs the question, how the hell did Matthias and Nina have a meet cute? Unfortunately, the gang's hike doesn't go as well as their little sailing trip. They're attacked by Grisha under the influence of Param, either because Jesper shot his guns or due to Nina and Matthias's loud as fuck argument. I'm going to go with the latter. And y'all, these Grisha are powerful as shit. Luckily, Wylan isn't hopeless with a bomb, and Nina is just badass with her knives, so they take them out. Nina is horrified and insists on burying these Grisha, despite the fact that everything is ice. Surprisingly, Matthias stays behind to help her while the others continue on. Ultimately, they both agree that Bo needs to die, so they can agree on something at least. And that's the break. I just like that we've just shortened it to Bo now. It's just Bo. Just Bo.
It's just Bo.
Oh.
Nobody wants to say Bo Yulbeyer.
Honestly, let's be real. If I had to be addressed by my full name every single time I was addressed, I just would not be addressed.
That's legit.
So I don't really have a ton of discussion questions for this because this is one of those books where like we have to be, because we're only talking about the first half of it, we have to be super careful. There were definitely some things with the Grisha trilogy where like we could kind of discuss them in bits and pieces and not reveal anything, reveal too much. So I don't really want to go and I don't want to go into too much that might reveal more from the second half of this book. But first and foremost, there are 6 point of view characters and 6 of crows. Ha, ha, ha. Who is your favorite so far? And who's your least favorite, actually? I mean, like, I don't want to go first. I can, but I don't want to.
Easy.
So who is your favorite and who is your least favorite?
Well, okay. So I think I'm going to go first with this because, one, I'm really eager to see if y'all have figured out who I hate.
Are we supposed to guess now?
Yes, you're supposed to guess. You could do this. I believe in you.
Matthias.
Yup.
Isn't he like everybody's least favorite?
No, there are Matthias stands out there.
Are any of us Matthias stands?
Don't understand.
No.
Cool.
The worst part about all of this is that I reading this book now when like neo-Nazis are a thing again, and just literal Matthias the Nazi essentially running around. Yeah. I'm like, no thanks.
No thank you.
And that's it. He simultaneously bores and terrifies me, which is just the shittiest combination ever. You shouldn't be boring and terrifying. Like the Darkling terrifies me, but he also doesn't bore me. He makes me stab a dude, but there's that. Mal bores me, but he doesn't terrify me. He's a lovely, lovely young man with some weird masculine aggression problems. Obviously, though, my favorite is Inej. We're not even going to pretend. The reason I started reading Grishaverse is because my friend Noor literally bought these books and sent them to me because they were like, "Oh, you're gonna love this series." Which character? Specifically, Inej. Look at this brown acrobat. Don't you love this brown acrobat and the imaginary brown people of India, the Middle East? called Vasuli, and here's your brown acrobat. Her name is Inej, and she is lovely. And she is indeed lovely, and I love her so much. And I just support her stabbing all the things.
Yep.
That's it. That's my insight. I love Inej.
In her,
I
like,
love Inej a lot.
introduction.
I would say that, like, she's not my favorite POV character, though. Like, I love her, but as a POV character, she is just a little bit too perfect in this book, particularly the first half.
She has what I consider my favorite chapter in the second half of this book, but I understand that, like, as a POV character, she's a bit.
Yeah, just a little bitty two shoes. Like, and I know that that's like kind of a weird way to put it, considering everything she's been through. But
two shoes, don't you love it?
I think it's her obsession with like the saints and everything that just really grates on me.
You're something against religious people?
No offense. My life.
I plead the fifth. I refuse to answer.
Well, all right. I'm just gonna go full hog, right? I'm Hindu, so like I get a lot of aggressively religious people who are like, "You're wrong." And let's be fair, this is like 2 people in my life ever, but also that's like too many. Like, butt your nose out of my business. It's leave me and my gods #saints alone. I found it kind of refreshing though, because I like in a lot of fantasy stuff, you either get religion that is like the gods are real and here they are and they give us our power, and you see that kind of worship, but you don't really see worship to gods or figures that don't actively exert their influence in the world and are a belief system like IRL. So I thought it was cool to just, have a main character who's like super religious, but also like super down with murder.
I mean, I get that. Yeah. No, I mean, that's the thing though. I don't listen, I don't have a problem with
Totally.
the saint thing. It's mostly just like, it's more just like the constant, like,
the goody two shoes.
The goody two shoes is the recitation of like and not the recitation of like her knives. Like, I like that she named her knives after saints. It's actually like the most anti thing for her religion. I don't know how to put that, but it's like anti everything that she is, but also perfect. And that's probably why I love it so much.
Happy to have a knife named after her. Like, Alina's like digging this. Somewhere, whenever Inej stabs somebody with Santa Alina, like Alina just gets like a chill in the order. She's like, oh, I feel like somebody loves me.
She named them the knives because those are her protectors.
Yes. I mean, I totally get it. But also, she does use them to murder people.
But bad people.
Yes, exactly.
More or less.
And again, I love Inej. I do. And honestly, I think we're all pronouncing their names differently, which I think is hilarious. I'm not doing it this time because I want to get it out before like the next webcast and like going through and be like, these are the names we mispronounce. So
we were wrong.
To be honest, it's really hard for me. Nick and Jonathan, you guys go first because I still don't really know who my favorite POV character is.
Well, I like Kaz the best of the POVs, just because I, for some reason, find con men interesting. I was a big Maverick fan, so I've always liked caper movies and shows. So I think Kaz is my favorite. Matthias is definitely my least favorite. I agreed he was boring. I didn't see the Nazi parallel. I saw the more just brought up as a bigot bully parallel. So he didn't.
I think that the Nazi parallel is something that like I wouldn't have necessarily immediately come to that conclusion the first time I read this a few years ago, but right now it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah,
going on in this country.
Like,
especially because around the time that I read it, it was literally this time last year, or maybe give or take a few months, and this was around the time at another like white supremacy rally, and our thankfully ex-president being like, yeah, they're stand-up people.
There's some good people out there.
Not ex-president yet. Still got 2 months to go.
And I just remember like reading this and being like, what the fuck?
Yeah. 1.5 months, Jonathan. Just to be clear. Counting the days at this point.
What is it, 49 days, 48 days? Something like that. All right, Nick, what about you?
Well, it's January 20th. I know that.
Yeah. What about you, Nick? Favorite, least favorite?
I'm like you. I'm struggling with my favorite. I love Kaz's POV. I love Inej as a character. Like you, her POVs aren't always my favorite, but I do really like hers. And then I also like Nina's. I think those are really interesting as well. Like everybody else, Matthias is the worst. I would be happy if he just was not a POV.
The worst.
So exactly. I don't know if this is spoiler for where I haven't gotten to yet, but it's called Six of Crows, but there are really only 5 pro POVs.
Really? Oh, well, yeah, because Wylan hasn't had.
Wylan has not had.
Wylan will have a POV.
Yes, yeah. So I think I might have said 6 POVs earlier, which is weird because I think I like
you did.
Oh, you know what? I was thinking of Yost. Actually, in that technicality, there's 7 because there's whatever. Anyway, but so far, right now, yes, technically there are 6 POVs. I counted Yost as one. And for me, like Matthias is least favorite. Whatever, like. I don't think that's really in question. Although to be honest, Jesper is really close only because the gambling addiction thing really grates on me. And I mean, like, I there's like a lot of things I really love about Jesper, but like the gambling thing, like just, and that's a personal thing. For sure. So like, I don't hate on Jesper as a character as a whole, but like, it's so just hard at times to read his chapters because I'm like, oh my God, really, dude. Favorite?
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. Favorite, like honestly, Nina whines about Matthias too much, but I love her so much as a character. Like I think she's probably my favorite Grishaverse character, like period, ever at this point.
And a lot.
And I think because of that, it's like even though her Matthias shit grates on me in this book especially, I can't help but like she's just so like sassy and whatever. Like I do what I want. She eats all the food that she wants. She like, you know what I mean? Like
I identify with Nina and waffles.
Like, yeah, it's very, because there's at some point, I can't remember when it is. And so to be honest, I'm not even sure if it's in the first half of this book, but at some point there's like I think she's like thinking back about maybe when she was at the little palace with like Zoya and everything and being judged for her weight. Cause she's like, she's not like heavy, but she's, you know, all the other Grisha are like lithe and like, you know, they're very, very fit from their working out and like their powers just kind of make them perfect. You know what I mean? But like Nina is like, whatever, I just eat whatever I want. And like, so I'm a little curvy. Like, and it's very like, I don't know, like she's just I feel her with the food and her like zest for life in general is just very I just wish, you know, the Matthias thing wasn't
I low-key like feel that she is basically all of my straight female friends who have terrible taste in men. And I'm just sort of sitting at the side and I'm like, girl, you're so wonderful. Why do you like shitty men like this?
That's real.
That's real life, Nami. Like you know it. Come on.
Don't worry, you've graduated.
So all right, so we know who our
Tara, you're
favorites
getting a bit of feedback on your
is it
mic
me?
occasionally. I'm pretty sure it's you because it wasn't Nami, and
Hold on.
Nick and I were quiet.
Hmm. I'm hearing like a crackly noise. I hope it's not me.
That's what I was hearing. Was that crack?
Yeah, I'm hearing like a crackling. Is that better?
So
Now I'm
far,
not hearing
Yeah.
anything. I literally didn't really do anything. I'm just gonna sit very still. I got new headphones. I did test them out. Like Nick and I talked a bit before this, so hopefully it's not me. Sorry. So one of the other the next question I wanted to go into was it's not so much a I'm hearing that too. Is it me? Oh my god. I'm not like I don't want to. It's not so much a question as a topic, but the treatment of or ideas about Grisha around the world. We learned a bit about their persecution in the Grisha trilogy, but now we're getting a lot more information on how they fare elsewhere, particularly in Ketterdam or Kerch and Fjerda. So, how do you guys feel about that?
well, it's certainly not good.
Great point.
That was a glorious understatement.
Yeah, I mean, at best, you're horrifically persecuted and made indentured servants, and at worst, you're wiped off the face of the earth
It is a really interesting
after being made a slave to.
between between the previous books and this series, because previously that was what was centered, and so really our only perspective was like how great they were and everything, and so now to have it be a very important but almost like a background aspect of these books is a really interesting shift. I kind of like it. It's a nice juxtaposition, and then also I just kind of like the focus on the heist as a whole as being what's important versus the magic systems or those elements, and those just being a part of everything that's happening, but not necessarily like the primary focus of it.
Yeah, I think it's like we get, again, we hear a little bit about what goes on in the outside world for Grisha in the Grisha trilogy, mainly when Tamar and Tolia show up, I think. And I mean, I think there's like brief mentions of it prior to that, but it's mostly like when they show up and we start hearing about how the Shuhan like experiment on Grisha and everything. And oh my gosh, I gotta be real careful here because I did like go ahead and like treat myself and read Crooked Kingdom too, and I don't want to like jump ahead because there's so much more about stuff in that. But like I mean, of course in Ketterdam it being like a market city, like or a mercantile city. I don't even know like what the proper word there is, but their whole thing is the honestly, like they say they're against slavery, but it's the buying and selling of people. I mean, that's what an indenture is. It's not the forced slavery for sure. Like you can't call it straight up slavery, but it's like, I mean, it's 1 to 2 steps above that. It's very close to being the same. And I like it's like Nina, she just works at the House of the White Rose by choice. But we see these other Grisha who it's very unclear, I think, where what is his name, Venko or whatever, that's mentioned briefly in Venko is the he's the Grisha that's in the
yeah, you're right.
POV chapter. Like he I think it's briefly mentioned that he like fought for the wrong side. It's like where did these people come from that they, and what's her name? Anya,
Mhm.
that is the one they are experimenting on in the first chapter. Like you don't really get much about where they came from or why they're there, but they're essentially servants. Like they get treated well, but they have, they owe their boss money, and they're being guaranteed they're being charged for like their living expenses, and they're trying to earn their way out of that. And it's just like, and then of course we hear so much more about what the Fjerdans do to the Grisha, which like it's like who's even worse in this case, you know what I mean? Like the Fjerdans, yes, they hunt them down, and of course it's like really fucking awful, it's awful what they do to them, but at the same time, like these Grisha also end up in Kerch in Ketterdam, trying to escape one thing or another, and they're led into this like life of servitude. I don't know. It's really, it's a lot to like dig into.
Yeah,
I think.
and I do think that one of the like the fact that I can't remember. I read the first half like literally the day after we finished the last webcast, and then I haven't touched it yet. And I can't remember if they say it in this part or not, but like they talk about like the slave trade in Ketterdam, and they don't call it anything else. They call it slavery, and it's God. Can't we just
like technically it's illegal, but it still happens. But to be fair, like it's
more like the it's not slavery per se, it's the indentured servitude that you see that a lot of, so it, historically speaking in our world, for that parallel, it's closer to the experience of Irish Americans and their indentured servitude versus the experience of Black Americans and their slavery. So, there's like, the dangle carrot on a stick that you can get freed, but we all know that that's not real. You really can't. So like, yeah, you could pay your way out, but they always increase your debts for like dumb shit. So, yes, this one time you took a nap, and so you owe us $20 for this nap.
Well, and it's very different for characters like Enid, who were, straight up like
abducted.
Like abducted,
and
the Grisha characters who came here pretty much by choice, and kind of again, I think that's kind of the difference between obviously Inej's Suli, which is Romani essentially is what they are. They're Romani. So, but like it's, but still like was absolutely stolen from her home and brought to Ketterdam and sold to Tanta Helene.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's Tanta, but like
and then,
but again, like it's you see it's like these Grisha, I guess, like, do they know? That's my question. Like, because it's kind of,
so,
like, they know what they're getting themselves into, but do they really?
So the other thing is that while some Grisha do voluntarily join this arrangement, it seems like the vast majority of them are being captured by slavers and have no choice.
Okay. I might have missed that, to be honest.
Yeah,
like,
so there are definitely slavers, and there are definitely people who are kidnapping people for the sole purpose of becoming slaves and for the sole purpose of getting Grisha, because Grisha are more valuable as slaves. And so, there's definitely, it is not voluntary for a large number of them. And I think another thing that's really interesting in this book is that it very explicitly, and also, please forgive me if I'm jumping ahead on this, but it really explicitly like shows sex trafficking in a child's book, in a YA book, which is wild to me, but it's also like, dang, yeah, that's true.
I don't know if I would call Six of Hers a YA book. I know that the characters are like 16, 17-ish, but like I mean, Red Rising is another series that I know Jonathan has read, and Nami, I know you've read some of them. Like, the characters are also like in the first book, it starts out with the main character being 16, and by the end he's 18. And in the future books, he's older, but like it often gets like pushed into that YA category simply because of his age.
Yeah,
I would never consider I don't understand. I still don't understand why they determine things are young adults.
And I think this is a little bit more in that gray area. But like, it's there's definitely, there's a lot of murder and stabbing and gore and thievery and gambling and drugs in this book.
But interestingly, not a lot of sex. So that is typical with American network television.
Yeah.
See, I would argue that for that reason alone, as Jonathan said, there is not a lot of sex, and there is not, like when I think of books for adults, as in I recently started reading non-YA, and I was like, oh, they fuck. They're allowed with YA.
Oh, they just straight up fucking these books. Dang.
I just had a full moment where I was like, oh, that's allowed in books. Why did I think that wasn't allowed? And I just... But yeah, Six of Crows is definitely like that weird gray area. Red Rising is absolutely not YA. I would not give that book to a YA. No.
But to be honest, Red Rising, especially the first one, actually really none of them, there's mention of some sexual things in similar veins as to what happened in this book or in these books, but like it is not like there's not explicit like sex scenes. So that's why like I think that there not being like a lot of like physical intimacy and sex is certainly part of it. But yeah, really that's an interesting question. I'm sure this is pushed as YA, but yeah, I really do think it's in that gray area where like, would I give my 14-year-old niece Hunger Games to read? Absolutely. Would I give her like this? Probably not. Not for at least another year or two.
That's interesting because I'd give my 14-year-old niece Game of Thrones, so I'm a bit more liberal.
Listen,
I guess.
I have a 9-year-old niece who's going on dates already. They do not need any more education on this shit. Okay, like.
I also was very much a child who learned everything from books and read way past my level for almost everything.
Oh, so, dude, there were books I was reading like when I was, super young. There was one I read when I was probably 9 or 10 that if my parents had known what was in that book, like, I don't know, it was like a horse book or something. I don't know, but it had like some really explicit sex scenes in it. Well, I don't remember where I got it from, but like, it was just like, you buy it because it's like the description and the cover and everything, the name, and it's like, wow, 9 and 10-year-old Tara is like, this is ridiculous.
Have any of you guys read, I think it's The Belgrade?
David Eddings?
Yeah, there are a couple. I can't remember if they were explicit sex or if they were just incredibly raunchy for a child's eyes. And I just remember reading this and being like, that's what happened?
I was 15 when I read it, and I don't remember.
Yeah, I was like 11 or 12. I was 10 or 11, actually, I would say. Because at 11, that was when I accidentally read some explicit fan fiction of Katara and Zuko, and then thus exactly learned how sex worked and was incredibly confused. But
okay then.
But
well, now that we've gone off on that tangent,
that's, just learning my backstory there. But oh man, that also the Dragonlance books, I read those really young, and I think that's the reason I grew up to just be like, D&D's awesome, because that whole thing is just like a D&D campaign without actually being a D&D campaign.
No, it is a D&D campaign.
Exactly, yeah.
But like, Dragonlance wasn't it put out by TSR to be a D&D campaign, essentially?
Well,
I know they have
the novels
Dragonlance modules now, but like there's like a whole book series.
Yeah, there's a whole series.
I know, yeah. But that was based on the.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was it based on
the game?
Oh yeah, no, like their mage full on casts fireball all the time, and I remember being like, wow, like fireball's really crazy powerful, but also it's the only spell this guy knows. Okay.
Well, I mean, and I don't know how much detail we want to get in on this and into on this, but you know, regardless of the lack of like physical intimacy and sex in this book, there is like
So far.
a lot of gambling and a lot of murder, and there's also, you know, Yurta Param, which is clearly like very. At this point in time, we don't have any Grisha who are taking it by choice the first time. The problem is once they do, they're so addicted that they're like, we see that they like need it. And one of the things I thought about discussing was the intricacies of like what you would compare that to in real life. But to be honest, like I think just mentioning the fact that like this is a really bad drug and it does like it makes them super powerful, but it does really bad things. But I mean, and that in and of itself, I think might be another thing that pushes this a little more into it's like okay, so if we call like the white side of the gray area YA and the black side of the gray area adult fiction, I would say that pushes this a little bit closer, like just over that absolute neutral gray line into that like slightly darker area, because it is really dark.
It's one of the things that I didn't actually think about how dark it was, despite, you know, consciously knowing that it was technically YA. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, you know, judging, and like I'm guilty of this too, and like just, you know, picking my reading choices, but judging the reader, the request, the appropriate reader age by the age of the protagonist in a book is oftentimes a very like flawed way to go about things, especially because like obviously they're 16-year-olds, but like I mean like I could give this to a 16-year-old and I wouldn't be surprised if a 16-year-old found this and read this, but if I found this and read this, I would also, and if it was my 16-year-old, I'd want to have a very serious talk about like, hey, there's a lot of rough stuff in this book. You okay, buddy?
I read a lot of stuff when I was younger that I shouldn't have. So.
Oh no, me too. I had a head full of knowledge and alarm.
To be honest, this is like the least of like every YA book I've read as an adult. Like I'm just like, oh god, I read way darker stuff than this when I was like 9 years old, let alone like 15.
No, I think about that all the time. Like I frequently have like moments where I'm like so glad my mom is not a reader, because if at any point she had gone through my bookshelf, she would have just been very concerned. Like so concerned.
But okay, so moving on to like some quotes and whatnot. One of the things we mentioned in the little recap was that Kaz deals in secrets. So he has this conversation with, oh gosh, Gilles, which is this is like the very beginning of the book, when he meets with them because they've had some beef with each other. I can't remember what it was. But there's some Stade Watch officers who are like supposedly there to keep Kaz or to kill Kaz or whatever. And, you know, Gilles, this guy from this other gang is like, I had to pay all this money to, you know, figure out who these dudes were. Like you couldn't have paid more than me. And, you know, Kaz says like, well, what I deal in is more important, and, you know, money is money, blah, blah, blah. But Kaz trades in information, and he says the things men do when they think no one else is looking. Shame holds more value than coin ever can. And I think that this is, I mean, first of all, it speaks to Kaz's, even though the Dirty Hands nickname clearly came from him, like with the gloves and him stealing stuff and everything. Like, I think that this quote, you know, it says it all. Like he he deals in the really dirty stuff. You know what I mean? Like he will hold, he blackmails people. He will hold shit over your head. I mean, I think it's that, it's in that whole scene where he threatens to burn the house down of the girl that Giles is seeing or whatever, you know, that's clearly in love with. And I mean, it just shows like how hard Kaz is as a person, you know?
Yeah. I think
Except
my favorite.
The irony in that case, though, is he actually didn't do it.
Of course.
Well, not of course. There are other times he actually did do it. But
well, when everyone knows you're a monster, you needn't waste time doing every monstrous thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Which I think was another thing I had highlighted, but yeah, like exactly. Like and that's I think that's the thing. He really does have you know, like lines that he won't cross, I think. Like I guess at this point we don't necessarily know for sure, but it seems like there are lines. Because that's the thing. Would he have actually crossed that line and burned down that girl's house? To be honest, at this point in the book, I wouldn't have necessarily doubted that. Because the only, like, you know, Ina is just constantly trying to see the good in him. So we see him through her eyes a lot. And I think that, you know, because she wants him to be she does absolutely want him to be better than he is. He's definitely not I don't think he's as bad as he wants everybody to think he is, but he's definitely not as good as Inej wants him to be or thinks he is. Like,
or hopes he is.
Oh, no, I don't think she thinks he is. I think she would like him to be. I don't think there's any doubt that she knows that he's pretty much I think
she knows he's dark, but she really
did. But she's in love with him.
She really did think in that moment that he had she really did think that he had burned down or had set fire to, you know, that girl's house. Like she really did think that.
No, she believed he would. She didn't ever. I don't, as I remember.
No, yeah, she asked him. She was like, "Well, what about like don't you need to go? Don't you need to call somebody?" And he was like, no, I didn't actually do that. Like, it just happened. Like, yeah, there was that moment when everything was kind of like wrapped up where she was like, well, don't you need to go take care of that threat? And he was like, no, I didn't actually do that. And then she says like, oh, I guess maybe you didn't. And I think that's a thing, like, we do see, and honestly, I think that's kind of a little bit of a turning point for her with him, because in that moment she sees that he exercised that mercy, so she therefore expects it from him in the future when maybe it doesn't exist. And that again speaks to just, you know, she just sees like the best in people, I guess.
I don't know.
I think she particularly wants to see the best in him because he rescued her.
Yeah.
He rescued her. She's in love with him.
I mean, and why is she in love with him?
Well, because probably when you're 15 and rescued by some guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
not a healthy relationship.
Well, clearly it's not, because like
healthy relationship.
What is a healthy relationship? Ha! First of all, that doesn't really happen in like any YA novel, or really most novels, period. But no, I mean, I and also like we from what we know about Kaz, like he is very, I mean, he does not keep his friends that close. You know what I mean? Like Jesper is just literally like a dog begging for scraps with him like all the time. Like that's another thing about Jesper that maddens me. It's like, first of all, dude, get your gambling shit under control. Like I know addiction and everything, but I don't know why the gambling thing just really grates on me so much with him. Like, literally anything else I probably could have handled, but like gambling not so much.
See, actually, I think
it's because of his like things that happen. I honestly can't remember if this happens now, so I don't in the first half of this book, so I don't want to say anything. But there's things that happen that it's like, oh my god, dude, like just but he also is constantly begging for scraps from Kaz, and it's like with Kaz, it's like I don't like, I can't even be mad at him because like he is what he is, and he does not really.
He doesn't pretend to be.
Yeah, he doesn't give them anything that should give them hope, I guess. So it's like, I mean, it's kind of your fault that you're hoping for him to be better than he is.
And I acknowledge that Ina definitely has like a reason to be hopeful with him because she does see that soft side of him because she is the only one that he is ever, actively kind to or as kind as he can be. Like out of everybody that Kaz interacts with, he treats one person like a human and one person only, and that person is Inej. So yeah, it's definitely misguided that she has a crush on him because, let's be fair, a large portion of it is dude saved your life from literal sex slavery. So like, I too would have a crush on the man. This is correct. But he also continues to be kind to her. And like, not, kind as a normal person and not, kind as the Darkling was to Alina, because that was always with the sense of manipulation. But Kaz is just straight up. He's like, yeah, I want you to spy for me. Also, I think you're neat at stabbing.
Well, and I'm gonna skip the next quote that I wanted to know for now. I'm going to come back to it, but this leads into this conversation between Inej and Jesper, where Jesper says that Kaz is like nobody else he's ever known. He surprises me. And Inej says, yes, like a hive of bees in your dresser drawer. And, Jesper barked a laugh just like that. And Inej says, so what are we doing here? And Jesper's reply is hoping for honey, I guess, and praying not to get stung. And Inej says, well, I guess we're both the same kind of stupid. So it's very much like, they definitely have both seen good things about Kaz. I really think Inej more than Jesper, and I think it's more Inej has actually seen those things, whereas Jesper just is so desperate for his like approval.
Also, I think part of it might be obviously this might also just be me reading into this a bit too much, but I think Jesper and Inej are really good friends, and I think part of that friendship is Inej talking to him about shit, and part of their mutual interest is Kaz because they're both idiots with a dresser full of bees. and I think a part of the reason that Jesper sticks around so loyally to Kaz isn't directly because of Kaz's treatment to him, but just because he values Inej's friendship and her opinion, and part of her opinion is that there is good in Kaz and that he is, capable of human emotions, because obviously she's seen it to herself. And
I also think Jesper absolutely has like more than a little bit of a crush on Kaz.
Jesper super has a crush on Kaz.
1000%.
That was always there. Sorry, Jesper. He's just really pining, and we love him a lot, but he's pining and it's not going great.
But is he, and here's the thing though, like, is he pining because he actually likes Kaz as a person or whatever? Or is he just pining because
bad boy?
Yeah, he just likes that bad boy action.
Yeah, I think it's very much he knows it's something he can't have. And Jesper is very flirty and very forward and seems to have it going real good with all the boys and girls that he's interested in, except for Kaz. So Jesper, it's like, honestly, like when you got it that easy, like the one person that like doesn't want to give you that time of day, it's like,
As someone who has that phase, 11 out of 10, this is correct. Jesper wants Kaz because he can have anybody else. And he's like, but this boy, this murder boy.
But I want that murder boy.
But this murder boy. God, I'm doing to Kaz exactly what I hate about people doing to the Darkling. But Kaz is like very straight up like, hey guys, I'm a gang leader, I'm manipulative, I fuck shit up.
Yeah, also, he doesn't murder entire cities worth of people just to gain power over the entire world. Like there's a difference between there's like we know Kaz isn't a good guy, okay, but like we know this. But like
levels of good guy.
But we're giving him the benefit of the doubt. He also doesn't have the opportunity to do what you just to getting power.
Yeah,
over
but
the
as
entire
portrayed, he's more of like a Zuko bad boy than
Yeah.
like a
No,
Lord Ozai bad boy.
I would say he's a few steps above Zuko in terms of bad boy. Pretty sure Zuko isn't just casually murdering a lot of people. Loki, I'm sure Zuko shows up to the gang and he's like, hey, you know, every time you've blown somebody off of a cliff face using airbending, that like they're super dead, right? Meanwhile, Aang is like, oh my god, I murdered people. And Toph is like, yeah, dude, you didn't know. And then Zuko's like, oh my god, we've been murdering.
Yeah, I mean, I like Kaz does it, but also like most of the. I mean, let's be real. The people that he hurts aren't good people. I'm not saying that excuses it.
No,
it absolutely
more...
doesn't. But he's not literally murdering cities full of innocent people, and I don't think he would do that either. Like that's the thing. Like, and here's I think the proof of that is that he like when he gets control of little things, right? When he gets control of the slat, he turns it into a place that his gang can live in safely. And they can be warm and dry and have a roof over their heads. You know, it's is he a good guy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He does horrible things, but he
isn't evil.
There's a line. Yeah, there's like a line, and he's a great character. He's a great character. He's fucking Tyrion, honestly. You know what I mean? Like he's without the rapiness, he's Tyrion. You know, like
and Wylan Samwell Tarly.
He's Tyrion has that like weird hero complex going on, but Kaz is like, yeah, no, I'm shitty. We know. Let's keep going.
But you know what I mean? Like he's that gray area character that does really awful things, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's like, oh my god, you're not as bad as like this other person. Like there's always a not as bad as this other person.
And also like let it be known that like any Matthias stan who comes into my house and is like, but Kaz is terrible, he kills people. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Kaz's body count is definitely higher than Matthias's, but Matthias killed people just for existing.
They were innocent, yeah.
So
that's the big difference to me.
Well, and also like hashtag we love growth in this house. I think this is a really like just the difference between the Darkling as a bad guy and like really anybody in the series, but particularly Kaz. Like we know he's a bad guy. Like it just shows how much that Leigh Bardugo has like grew as a writer between writing like the Grisha trilogy and these books. Because like in the Grisha trilogy, we've got the Darkling who's just. He's got there's points I know where Alina feels bad for him, but like also girl. And then, you know, and then there's the opera who's like, you know, he's not evil necessarily, but he's a shitty ass dude. Like, and there's really no like redeeming qualities about him either. There really aren't.
Greasy Tunnel Man.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen the Hulu series The Great?
No, I've seen it on my recommendations, but I haven't watched it.
Y'all should definitely see it. It's fantastic. But the opera always reminds me of
The Great.
Crap, what's the character's name? There's like a religious advisor to.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's
right. Right.
Oh yeah.
I like how you're both doing this thing. Like they're doing a thing with their hands. For anybody who's listening to this as a podcast, they're doing the Madonna thing, like Vogue. They're voguing.
So we're showing his face, but we can't do his face.
Is he square? Does he have a square head?
No,
it's just.
But he's like greasy and gross, like the opera is, and like
a greasy tunnel man.
So Jonathan and Tara, you should totally watch it. I think you'll both really enjoy it. And when you see this character,
yes,
but not the one that was on HBO. Which
this was on Hulu.
On Hulu, okay.
It has Nicholas Hoult and oh no, I need to know her name.
Yeah, it's like sassy and funny and semi-historical and just really good.
But yeah, I mean, it's like the opera isn't a total bad guy, but he's not a good guy, and he's kind of. I mean, he kind of disappears into the ether. Like he's weakly written, and like you're like, what the fuck is this? He's kind of like in the end pointless, really.
Well, I was gonna say I don't think he's a real character. He's a plot device.
He's
right, but again, I think that's what like we went from the Grisha trilogy where we get uber bad guy and plot device bad guy, and here we actually have I'm honestly, we have characters here. Like what gray area characters are in the Grisha trilogy? Like we could discuss the ins and outs of Zoya being a bitch, but like that she's just a bitch sometimes. Like
no. I'm going to edit that. She is just a bitch always. Like don't give her that benefit of the doubt. She is 100% a bitch 24/7. She doesn't even turn it off.
I feel like there's a rap song about that.
Probably. I would be.
She is 100%.
She took a DNA test.
She is 100%.
That's it. Also, I feel like definitely a Cardi B song would probably apply to her spiritually. Yeah. But, you know, unrelated. I will say that as much as I hate Matthias, I appreciate what Leigh tried to do with him. As we go on, I will go more into detail of how successful I thought it was. But I still hate the man. Hate him, dump him up in the dirt. Don't like him. Nina, why do you like this boy? This trashy, trashy, trashy boy.
Well, speaking of Nina, again, good segue. Back to the other quote. This is something that I just wanted to discuss for personal reasons, I guess, more than anything. But it's talking about Nina and her chief source of income came from altering moods. People came to her lonely, grieving, sad for no reason, and left buoyed, their anxieties eased. The effect didn't last long, but sometimes just the illusion of happiness is enough to make her clients feel like they could face another day. And
So
like
she was a bartender.
I mean, honestly,
I read it more as like antidepressant.
Yeah. She is like the antidepressant med that works without the zombie stuff. Like I've been on a lot of different antidepressants, and like the one that worked the best for me in terms of like least side effects also made me a fucking zombie. So like if I could go to somebody and have them just kind of like, you know, touch my face a bit and like make me feel like a little bit better for like even if it was just a short period of time. Like, I mean, honestly, like I would, because therapy makes you feel better and worse at the same time. Honestly, it usually makes you feel so much worse before it makes you ever feel better. And this is basically like and also with the cost of therapy, especially when you have a shitty ass healthcare plan like most of us in the United States do, including yours truly. The idea of somebody who is an antidepressant without the side effects is like, whoa.
I think
10 out of 100 or 100 out of 10 would do.
I think the best part about Nina is that not only is her actual thing like an antidepressant, like it's literally an antidepressant on crack. Because think about it, like even with antidepressants, like it's not making you happy, it's just making you able to not always be sad, which is incorrect. It's not the same as happy. And
right.
You know, as somebody who is still actively on antidepressants, and thankfully I didn't have the mess that you did, and you know, I started Lexapro and I've stayed on Lexapro, and you know, it's just been me and my buddy for 6 years now. But like it's one of those things that like, you know, IRL talking to people about depression and depression meds, they're like, well, you're on your meds, you should be happy. And I'm like, no. That's not what they do. They don't make you happy. They just make you not sad always. Like, and I think the fact that Nina, like, full on, she's like, oh, it's not real happiness. But I'm like, even the illusion of happiness is happiness. Like, it's an illusion, yeah, but like, you can still experience that emotion within the illusion. And I think that's like, I remember reading this and being like, damn, I wish I had that. That would have been nice. Like straight up give me, like, low-key, I not only equated it to antidepressant, but I related it to like antidepressant with the added euphoria of like also drugs again.
Like MDMA or something.
Yeah, because a lot of people who do take drugs, they take it because they get like whatever chemical stimulant or depressant like occurs from that drug, and they get that quote unquote high. And that high could be emotional. It could be like, you know, feeling happy. It could be feeling like loopy. If you can't tell, I don't really know or do drugs, but I just hear that there is a thing called a high that occurs, and I imagine that would involve a happiness at times, perhaps. I don't know. But then they can't find it again without the drug, and I think that's a lot of what I equated Nina to there. And at the same time, I was like, wow, I wish this was real. Give me those happy pills, the fake happy pills, because now you just have the, actively not sad pills. And
well, because that's the thing, like she kind of, there's the whole thing about, oh, it doesn't last forever, but like, again, neither do antidepressants. Like you stop them and then, or you wean yourself off them, and listen, all the feelings come back, and trust me, the good ones come back, but the bad ones come back too. So it's very much like, it's I don't know. It's like I'm torn. It's like I love the idea of this, but it's also like, nah, too good to be true. I get it. I get that it's too good to be true.
Low-key doesn't matter to me. I just want to pocket Nina, because full on, like, just having like a little Nina on my shoulder speak, like, have you had a waffle today? Like, you should have a waffle. Like, treat yourself, girl. I'm like, yes, thank you.
I need a little Nina on my shoulder, just reminding me to eat most of the time, because I get so busy and I just forget. I just forget.
Like, I think I only ate 2 meals today, and one of them was a piece of cookie cake. So, like, I feel like
Nina would be very proud of you.
Nina would be proud of me. I ate cookie.
Do we need to have like in our group chat just be like, hey, did everybody eat today? Like, just checking in.
Yeah. I feel like we need to eventually, hopefully we get like followers, like more followers on this thing, and we can have like a little group on Facebook where like we're all just like, did everybody eat today? Do we all need a Nina in our life?
Unfortunately, forgetting to eat has never been my problem.
But I do think that it's really important to recognize that desire, as somebody who has now been on antidepressants for 12 years and has no plan to get off of them ever. I think you're absolutely right, Nami. Like the goal of an antidepressant is not to make you happy. It is to create a different baseline than what you currently exist at. And if you are clinically depressed, you exist at a baseline where your mood is suppressed. And exactly, Nami is making like hand signals
gestures,
of like baseline.
Whatever a middle between always happy and always sad is, and then I'm making another hand that's going boom down to be like, that's depression.
Exactly. And an antidepressant just brings you closer to that baseline that everybody else experiences as a normality. And so I also agree that like the idea of somebody who could actually not just bring you up to that baseline, but could actually remove the normal feelings of anxiety, of sadness, all of those things, because those are normal emotions, right? Like somebody who is anxious is not abnormal. Not that having anxiety is clinical anxiety is necessarily abnormal either, but anxiety is a normal emotion is what I'm trying to say.
But like normal like the normal level of, or the general level of anxiety should be at X, okay, like low X, and like when somebody has generalized anxiety, it's at like high X, and when someone has a panic disorder, it is at like way Y. Like it's
and then when 2020 happens, we all just have anxiety.
Oh my gosh, I was literally talking with a medical professional yesterday about how like in 2020, the number of people who have reported like more closer to what like clinical disorders look like has skyrocketed just because of what's happening. So those of us who actually deal with this shit all the time, like we're struggling, people. Like holding it together, and things like this podcast are all that keep us going.
I mean, really, like I have generalized anxiety, and also PTSD. So I have X-ray anxiety that comes from PTSD, like a trauma disorder, but like when you add like the 2020, here's the thing, like I had gotten my generalized anxiety under control, and I know this does not work for everybody. do not believe this works for everybody. I had medication for when I needed it, which was very rarely. And I was generally able to handle my anxiety with exercise and my pets. That sounds weird, maybe. Talking to friends, like these little things, you know what I mean? Like I was able to handle my generalized anxiety. The PTSD stuff, that's a little bit different, but 2020 happened and I'm literally calling my doctor because I there was one day I almost passed out and hit my head because I couldn't force myself to breathe. At the when the COVID, when everything with COVID first really hit me, you know what I mean? And I am a germaphobe to the extreme, no matter what. So I was one of those, I literally was afraid to leave my house. I live by myself. I have no one else here to help me with these things. So the idea of somebody who can just smooth those emotions away, even if it's just temporary, is and listen, God, I would pay, and just like people in this book do, they pay premium for that. She literally works at a brothel. You know what I mean? Because nobody, they don't want, and I think that's, actually that's a really poignant thing too. She works at a brothel and these people come to her in secret to get themselves fixed.
Yeah, because again, nobody wants to talk about mental health, and it's just the parallels are so good, and also as a person who never had anxiety before, 2020 has given me anxiety, and I'm now sitting here is this what this is like? I hate this. This is terrible. Nina, come take it away, Nina, please.
We all need a pocket Nina. That's what we've learned on this episode of Sagas and Sass.
In conclusion, I would like a Nina and I would like an Inej. I would like a Nina to remove my stress and to encourage me to eat waffles and to love myself. And I would like a Inej to just, believe in the best in me and kill my enemies. It's fine.
Oh, really? I was gonna say, I feel bad now because I would like Ninej to go find out all my enemies' secrets.
I mean, also
lovely.
Yes, but I wouldn't want secrets because I don't know, man. If I have no reason to keep them, I'm just gonna spread them around like money. Obviously,
why not? I mean,
but then they don't have power,
I really think
you've already weaponized them by spreading them around like that.
I think the real lesson here is Jonathan is actually probably the gossip girl among us.
Yeah, he's the one holding all this information for later, so that he can blackmail us. And when we have a gun pointed at his chest, we stand.
As someone whose mother suffers from depression and had a postpartum and anxiety, and I suffer from anxiety, but at a young age, I was introduced to psychologists because the assumption was that everyone in the family is crazy, so we all have to go to psychologists, and I just never liked it, so I just have self-medicated myself by basketball and whatever. And
that makes sense.
That's not the kind of self-medication I do, but cheers.
Yeah. That's a good kind of self-medication. That's the kind that's
my daughter says to me all the time, it's like, you really sometimes should get some help. And it's like, no, I can fight it off. But I see how getting help has helped my aunt and my mother and everyone else, but it's just not something I've ever. And my aunt swears it's because I had a lousy psychologist that was awful.
Probably.
And that turned me off to them.
I mean, to be honest, I think of psychology as like anime, which is to say, I think there is such a breadth that there's probably something for everyone, but you might run into a bunch of crap before you ever find anything decent.
And that's the problem. How long are you going to stick with the crap?
Yeah, no, exactly. Is it worth going through all the crap in order to find the gem that is the perfect anime for you? I don't know.
Well, and in the end, obviously Nina is the perfect anime. So.
Should I admit this? Should I admit this on a podcast with my daughter and wife might be hearing? And not that I invited, but my aunt was actually a member of a cult for a while. Not an Nexium cult, and I went one year to this cult event that was similar to Est, I guess. And as far as I could tell, they were basically trying to encourage you to have as much sex as humanly possible.
Another really good antidepressant.
Not necessarily healthy, though. You know.
And I was sitting there, I was 21 at the time, and I'm like, really? This is the advice you're giving to people?
You were
I don't know. If I was 21 and I went to that, I might have been like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously, Jonathan, you made the right decision.
At 21, that was exactly how I self-medicated, so you were much wiser than I was.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the irony is, it was at the time of my life I was having zero sex whatsoever, but that didn't appeal to me to start.
Well, I mean, to be honest, that sort of like forced idea that like this is how you make yourself happy. I don't know if I would have necessarily bought into that either.
God, I'm so happy you have cult experience.
Well, okay. Speaking of cults, the Druskella, I think is how we would pronounce it.
I've said Druskel. I've also just stuck to not calling them that and just mentally being like, yes, the witch hunter Nazis.
Well, I don't think this is a Druskella thing. I think it's a Fjerdan thing, but the idea of the water hears and understands, the ice does not forgive. I really I just like that line like a lot.
So good.
It's a really good line. It doesn't, strike with me personally because, my people are from a warm place. We don't have ice mitts, y'all. But also at the same time, I'm like, that's some good words. That's some very good words.
I mean, let's be real though. Like if you're talking about driving in a car, water does not hear and understand. Like you can plane on a water like as easier than you can like slip on. Like
everything's terrible in a car. The fact that people are like, cars are safe, planes are not, makes me go, sweetie, no.
Yeah, don't even get me started.
Yeah, like
I got in an argument with somebody about that a couple weeks ago, like about how easy it is to get into a car accident. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm talking like a deep ass real argument.
Yeah,
it took up more of my time and energy than it ever should.
You can get in a car accident in seconds.
I literally bounced off a deer 2 weeks ago. Like, I want to say either like it was like a couple days after the webcast or maybe like a little bit after, but I literally like full on like this deer jumped out right in front of my car, impossible to avoid. It just bounced off the edge and I just sat there for 10 minutes in front of the deer waiting for it to get up and run away.
Well, that deer heard and understood.
How badly damaged was your car?
It did not forgive.
It's not bad, actually. So, like, the bumper got messed up, but
yeah, you got lucky, man, because normally deer are the don't forgive end of this quote.
The other thing is, though, that normally, like, if I had full-on hit the deer, it would have been really bad, but the way that it came out was literally, like, it glanced off the edge of the car. Like, it literally got up and walked away when a cop approached it. And meanwhile, I was sitting there sobbing, and the cop was like,
there was a cop there? Well, there was a cop there directing the deer?
Yeah, okay, yeah, all right.
This has nothing to do with Six of Crows, and I don't even care because the idea of there being a cop, like, directed
Okay, so what happened was, like, I hit this deer, right? And there were, like, 3 cars that were opposing traffic. This was, like, 5 minutes away from my house, and it's on a road where cops always lurk. So I'm pretty sure that the people who witnessed it either called 911 when they saw that I wasn't moving the car because they were like, oh shit, what if she got hurt? Meanwhile, I was sitting there in my car crying because this deer was literally just staring at me and blinking. And I was like, I know I hit you. Stop looking at me, you asshole.
Was it white? Was it the white stag? Did you need those horns for your collar?
No, I did. I full on, if it wasn't a doe, like I needed those horns, doe.
Oh, it was a doe. Damn it.
Yeah, so I was sitting here and like the cop pulls up behind me and I'm like sobbing in my car, right? He's like, ma'am, are you okay? And I was like, it's looking at me. And he's like, hi, my name's Eddie. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not hurt, but I'm emotionally.
Also, this reminds me of the Gilmore Girls episode where a deer runs into Rory's car and makes her late for her for her exam or something. Anyway, okay. So back to the.
I'm really bad at staying on track.
No, honestly, that story was amazing, and I am not regretting at all that it was included in this webcast.
So the cop eventually went and just looked at the deer, and he tried to help it and move it to the side, but in the process of reaching to it, the deer was
literally a deer in the headlights, Nami. What are you gonna do? You got to turn off your headlights and move the cars.
I know, but I wanted to make sure it was okay. Hilariously, my sister also passed me on the way home, and as she walked into the house, told my mom that there was some idiot just sitting behind a deer on the road because she didn't want more people to hit the deer. And I was like,
knowing your family and your sister, this does not surprise me at all. Okay, so anyway, the water hears and understands, the ice does not forgive. I mean, do we have any thoughts on this? I like the quote. I think it's a really good quote. I think it's also it's hard to. It's I love the quote so much, but it's hard to
It definitely fits with the mentality of people from an icy place. It's the kind of stuff that I would expect some sort of desert quote equivalent from people who grow up in the unforgiving desert, and something about the water hears and forgives but the sand does not love, or something like that, because it's very deeply tied to how they exist as people. And when everything's frozen in Ferda, it's I'm sure water sucks too, but God fuck the ice.
So I like it because it reminds me of the idea that you can totally understand where somebody's coming from. You can even potentially be okay, I get it, but that doesn't mean that you have to forgive them for what they did.
I did not read that deep. That's good.
I saw that, and I also see. I mean, to be honest, I see the idea of it just speaks to the Fjordan culture as a whole. Like Nami said, they have their rivers. They have Gel, who is the Gel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing he's the spring, coming from underground, the water spring of life or whatever. And of course they do have a coast, although they don't appear to do much with it. People, let's be real, the crows were able to just land there and just kind of walk, they're just able to land and walk away, no big deal.
Such a waste of good water.
I got news for you. It's easier to land. The ocean is large. It's easier to get through patrols than you think.
I mean, I've never tried to sneak into a country via the ocean, so I cannot say that I understand this. But also, yeah, no, that tracks.
Especially before radar.
Seems legit.
Also, especially if people are just not actively, beaching all the time, which I suppose you wouldn't do if it was Iceland.
But I think it's very interesting to me that this is it's a common Fjordan saying, except for the fact that do they hear? Do they understand?
Nah, they absolutely
no. They're very cold, hard people.
No, they're Nazis.
Yeah,
they don't understand. They are nice.
Well, I mean, most of them are very fine people, Nick.
I'm sure there's nice people amongst them, Nick. There were good people on both sides.
If there's 10 people at the table and 9 of them are Nazis, you have 10 Nazis.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think the thing with that quote is they're the water hears and understands, the ice does not forgive. Bitch, we are the ice. Drop mic.
Yeah, that's really what it is. That's really what it is. There's no
they're just setting you up to be disappointed in their humanity.
Yes, exactly. And we learn way more about that in the second half of this book, which we'll talk about in 2 weeks. So, but because I don't want to bust in. Oh God, it's so hard for me to not talk about the second half of this book right now. But because I don't want to do that, do you guys have any last thoughts about this particular, like the first, half of this book? The characters we met, the things that happened, where, I don't necessarily want to talk too much about where they might be going in the future, but last thoughts.
Well, I mean, I'm finding myself, I'm enjoying this book more than I enjoyed the last, and I did enjoy the first trilogy. I think this is better. I think it's more intimate. It's
Much.
So I feel, and capers I've always been hooked on capers. Shout out to Harry Harrison and the Stainless Steel Rat, one of the great caper science fiction series of all time. For anyone listening, that no one has heard of anymore because he was written in the 60s.
Yeah, to be honest, because I read the Grisha trilogy first, and I had like a very personal connection with like a lot of things that happened in it. When I read these books the first time, I was like, I mean, they're super, super good, but do I feel that connection with them? I don't know. But no, yeah. Now reading all of them again, and I read them back to back the first time too, but like reading all of them again, it's like, yes, these are better characters. It's a better written book. Heist things, like I have this weird, like I actually really love heist stuff. I don't care how bad the Ocean's movies are. I fucking love them.
Dude,
they're bad. I recognize that as a whole, these are bad. They're not great film, but I don't care. I love them. Like, so, and this is like that, but with like actual characters that I give a shit about. So
big same. Like, full on, I'm the person that I love Ocean's 8 because even though it's cheesy and their whole thing is heist but with girls, I'm like, heist but with girls!
Same. Big same.
So, like, yeah, full mood. And like when I got these books, I devoured Six of Crows in one sitting, like probably 3-4 hours. I was done, and I just remember finishing it and then being filled with anxiety for the cliffhanger it left on, and I was like, and now I need to go back and read the Grishaverse to put off the inevitable end. And so that's what happened with me. And like, I love these books so much because it gives me the high of a heist with also the satisfaction of a diverse group of a diverse cast, because we didn't really talk about Wylan, but like clearly something's up with this kid. And like, we got an actual disabled character because Kaz with his foot in his cane, and it doesn't stop him, and he still continues to be badass. We have Inej, a brown woman who like, kicks butt. We've got Nina, a plus size woman who kicks butt. We've got Jesper, a black man who presumably has ADHD, who kicks butt. And we've got who definitely has ADHD. Sorry. I know I said presumably mostly because I couldn't remember if it was like actually addressed in this half of the book or not. But yeah, Jesper has ADHD.
I don't think that's, I think that even if it's not specifically addressed, it's pretty, well, for anybody who has ADHD, it's pretty definite.
And then, Wylan, and this isn't a spoiler, but Wylan has dyslexia. And and they also have obviously queer characters with Jesper that flirts with everything that moves. And, and I just, God, I love all of it. I love all of it. Love all of it. Give me diverse heists.
Well, and also that's the thing, like, we're also still given this like magic system that we now, granted, we have just read the Grisha trilogy, and I know honestly, I don't think many people start with that, because I know Nick read Six of Crows first. You read Six of Crows first. I feel like one of my other friends, who actually I found out about this book series from, read Six of Crows first. So it's like, I feel like everybody starts with that and then goes back to the Grisha trilogy. But like,
I feel like unless you actually started reading the Grisha trilogy when it was originally coming out, starting with Six of Crows is the way to get people hooked into this series, because Six of Crows is objectively the better book.
It really is. I mean, it's this duology.
Yeah, but that may turn you off to it, though, if you go the other way, because you're like, why would I read this? This sequel's terrible, or this prequel's terrible.
And it's also, it's one of those things that, like, this is, again, not to say that, like, the Grisha trilogy is bad. It's just that, like, it's kind of, average when you
think. Right, but it becomes a letdown if you read it first.
Yes.
If somebody like raves about a series and, you know, tells you to read it, you expect, you know, a little above average. It's one of the reasons I never ended up reading like Divergent or The Maze Runner, because people were like, yeah, I love it. I started reading it. I'm like, this is basic bitch shit. I'm out. I dropped the mic again, folks. I don't have a mic.
And Nami is not a basic bitch, y'all.
I mean, I absolutely am, but
well, and I think that, like, yeah, I mean, listen, like, I do think the Grisha trilogy, it's good. It's good as like its own thing. But yes, again, like, that's why we absolutely had to read that one first, even though Six of Crows is the one people usually read first. And to be honest, I think that is the reason why Netflix is combining Six of Crows with the Grisha trilogy, because they know that they're going to reach a bigger audience and hook a bigger audience with a combination of the two than they ever would if they just started with the Grisha trilogy.
Yeah. Is it going to be long enough?
I don't know. Like, I'm to be honest,
I'm like 8 episodes.
Well, and that's the thing. We don't know how much they're going to cover. I'm very interested to see how they're going to combine the two, because Six of Crows takes place like a year or two after everything that happens in the original. Like, Nina is one of the kids that was sent to
the orphanage. Yeah,
I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, she was one of the kids that was sent from Little Palace to the orphanage. So like, it's going to be very interesting.
A year. I think it's more than a year.
I think it's two. I think it's two.
Because Nina was 14 basically in the series. Because if you remember, Adric was 15 and he was technically one of the kids, but he was allowed to.
Well, let's be real. Adric was allowed to stay because his sister championed him.
But yeah, his sister championed him. But like 15 was like essentially like a kid age. So Nina was at least 15 when it happened, and I think she's 16 in the books. So I think, having her like saying it was like a year or two,
which is so crazy, because like, wouldn't you have loved to be like that sure of yourself at 16 years old?
Like, damn.
Like, wouldn't you love to have loved yourself the way Nina loves herself, and loved life the way she loves life at 16? That's hilarious.
And sounds fake, but okay.
Yeah, it sounds like.
So let's be honest, and it's even. I think it's a little bit, even in the last 30 years, it's different. People grow up faster back in the 18 and 1900s than they do today.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean,
for
what it's worth. Even 30 years ago, what you were expected to do and be independent at certain ages was much younger than it currently is.
Oh, definitely. But I think the point is less about the independence and more about the satisfaction of who she is as a person. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you can be an independent person for a very long time and still not have the same zest for life and confidence in who you are as me.
Fair enough.
And for reference, Tara is just making a face and pointing to herself aggressively.
Yeah, because I left home at like 17, and there's a lot of things I did like that would be considered very adult, like in my early 20s, including like owning a home and stuff like that. Like that like I but like that, just because I did those things, just because I was independent, just because I worked, just because I had a job, just because I was able to support myself. And this is also, I feel like this might be aging myself, but like, I also just got very lucky in what I did, like during and right after college. But like, just because I was able to do those things at that age does not mean that I was a complete or confident or happy person. Like I really did not become that person until my late 20s. And I say that and like the way I've been the past few years into like my mid to late mid 30s. That's all I'm going to say there. Into my mid and late mid 30s is still like, is even more just like a confident in myself and in my way of life. And don't get me wrong, I still have my issues, but like just because I had responsibility and was able to like take care of myself and stuff and was independent does not mean that I was a confident person who was like happy with myself or my life. And or as a woman, to be honest, like with my body, you know, with like so many other things, like and there's not much that has changed about me, you know, personally or physically really, but like there's so many things that just come with age.
Yeah.
You learn to just be, to let go of some of
and
that
to like
bullshit.
yourself, you know. And I think Nina like is such a good example of learning to like yourself, because not only does she unapologetically like herself, she's young and she's also, you know, not a skinny person. And like it's rare to see a female character who just likes themselves unapologetically, much less a plus-size female character who unapologetically likes herself. And I'm just like, heck yeah, like fuck yeah, give us that. Because when you look at the other female characters in Grisha, and I'm personally talking about like Grisha, I'm personally talking about like Zoya, Genya, Alina. Like obviously they're like confident and doing adult things, but they don't have that. I don't ever really feel that like self-satisfaction and like liking themselves that you get from Nina until maybe Alina in the epilogue, when she, you know, gets to retire with her children and her husband. And even then we don't know for sure. We just, you know, hope she's happy, but like you don't ever get it explicitly stated. But like, you know, like having like being able to be confident in yourself and happy in yourself, and like not just confident but happy with yourself, is like chef's kiss. Nina, please show me how.
Seriously. All right. Well, because I'm so afraid that if I keep talking about these things, I'm going to get into like future book stuff that I don't want to spoil.
Oh, I know, right? Now I just want to talk about, I'm not going to say it.
It's so difficult. Don't say it. Just don't say it. All right. Well, we're actually right at about an hour and a half, which is, I think, like our general great stopping time. Yay for us. So thank you guys. Thank you for listening. If you're watching this later as a webcast or listening to it as a podcast, we hope you enjoyed. And we will be back on Wednesday, December 16th, so 2 weeks from today, to talk about the second half of Six of Crows, which is going to be way fun because it, like we've already mentioned, it does end on a very big cliffhanger, just warning you. But yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about Six of Crows. And then we also, and we'll talk about this again on our next episode, but we do have a special holiday episode that we're still like throwing ideas up in the air. So I think I think we're probably settling on one thing, but I don't know. I'm not going to say it now. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for joining. Thank you for talking. And yeah, have a lovely night. Oh, also keep an eye on our Facebook page and whatnot, on Twitter, hopefully, if I can keep up with it. We're doing Sundays with Sass, where I'm posting some graphics that I made with quotes from the series. I started this past Sunday, and so now we've got quotes from, like, I think I did 2 quotes per book, so we'll go through, I think, the end of January with these 6 books, and then we'll see what happens beyond that. But have a lovely night, and thank you for joining.
Good night.